She booked me the cheapest room on the ship and pocketed the difference, thousands of dollars. She called it cutting corners. She thought the old contractor was just a worn-out checkbook, easily confused and discarded. She was about to find out I don't just build houses. I demolish them, too. My name is Robert Miller. I'm 68. For 40 years, my hands built foundations. I thought I had built a strong foundation for my family. I was wrong. If you're listening to this, subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world. Because standing in that Seattle cruise terminal, surrounded by thousands of excited people, I had never felt more isolated. The noise hit me first, a wall of sound, excited chatter, rolling suitcases clattering on the polished marble floors, and the distant, promising blast of a ship's horn. It smelled of salt water, strong coffee, and expensive perfume. Thousands of people moved around me. Bright vacation clothes, wide smiles. Everyone seemed to belong. Everyone, perhaps, except me. I clutched the handle of my old, battered suitcase. The same one Margaret and I took on our honeymoon. It felt like the only real thing left in the world. This trip, a 2-week luxury cruise to Alaska, was Margaret's dream. My wife used to sit at the kitchen table, brochures spread out, dreaming of glaciers and whales. We saved for decades. But life happens. The savings went to college tuition for our children, Chloe and Ethan. Then Margaret got sick. The money went to hospitals. Treatments bought us time, but not enough time. When she passed 2 years ago, the world went silent. The only thing that kept me going was a promise I made to her in those final days. I would take the trip for both of us, and I wanted my children with me. We needed to heal. We needed to remember her together. I sold the business. I took the money, everything I had left, and told Chloe to book the trip. I thought I was honoring Margaret. I didn't realize I was setting myself up for the biggest heartbreak of my life. "Dad, let me handle the details," Chloe had insisted. Her voice brisk and efficient. Chloe is a marketing executive now. She lives in a world of sleek surfaces and high stakes. "You just relax. David and I will make sure everything is perfect." I trusted her. She was my daughter. I handed over my credit card, authorized the payment for 3 concierge-class balcony suites. It was a staggering amount of money. But this was for Margaret. This was for my family. But family meant something different to Chloe. Now standing in the massive terminal, my knees ached. I'd been standing near the priority check-in area for nearly an hour, waiting for Chloe and her husband, David. I checked my watch again. They were late. Anxiety tightened in my chest. What if something happened? What if this whole thing was a mistake? Finally, I saw them, rushing through the revolving doors. Chloe looked immaculate, the white linen pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. David trailed behind her, struggling with several large, sleek designer suitcases. They looked like models in an advertisement, not like a family going on vacation. "Dad, there you are," Chloe said breathlessly as she approached. She didn't hug me, just a quick air kiss near my cheek. "Sorry, the traffic was an absolute nightmare." "It's okay, sweetheart," I said. The relief made my voice sound weak. I was just getting a little worried. "We're here now," David added. He offered a brief, distracted smile. He was already scanning the check-in line, fidgeting with his expensive watch. "We need to hurry, Chloe. The line is backing up." They didn't ask how I was. They just wanted to move. We joined the priority queue. Chloe took charge. She moved to the front, her voice polite but firm, as she spoke to the attendant. I watched her, that familiar, complicated mix of pride and distance. She had Margaret's eyes, but the warmth that always resided in them had cooled, replaced by a sharp, calculating intelligence. The attendant typed briskly, smiling brightly. After a few minutes, she handed a crisp white envelope to Chloe. "Okay, we are all set," Chloe announced. This was the moment everything started to unravel. Chloe pulled out the sleek gold keycards. They gleamed under the terminal lights. She handed one to David with a triumphant smile. "This is for our suite, 902, the panorama deck. The panorama deck. The best of the best, exactly what I paid for." She held up 2 more cards. "And these are for Ethan's room, 904, right next door. He'll meet us directly on the ship." I waited. I shifted my weight. The silence felt too loud. Suddenly, the envelope was empty. There were no more cards in her hand. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I cleared my throat. And mine, Chloe. Which one is mine? Chloe sighed, a quick, sharp exhale, the sound of someone dealing with a tiresome inconvenience. She didn't look at me. She focused on putting her own card into her expensive leather wallet. My heart hammered in my chest. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Dad, the booking got complicated, she said, speaking quickly. Her eyes darted around the terminal, avoiding mine. Complicated? I asked. There was an issue with the room assignments on the panorama deck. She rushed on. The cruise line overbooked. They are still sorting it out. Sorting it out? I asked, confused. We booked this 6 months ago. I thought everything was confirmed. It is confirmed, Dad. It's just logistics, she said. Her tone was laced with impatience. The same tone she used when I couldn't figure out how to use the new smart TV. They have you on the manifest. They just don't have the room key ready yet. Logistic. It sounded like an excuse. She looked at her watch, then back at the long gangway leading to the ship. Look, we need to board. We have reservations for the welcome lunch. And the ship leaves soon. She pointed towards a crowded seating area near the baggage claim. Far from the check-in desk. Far from the excitement. Just wait over there. I'll call you as soon as they have your key. It shouldn't be long. She was dismissing me, like I was an employee, not her father. But what about my luggage? I started, gesturing to my old suitcase. David, take Dad's bag up to our suite with ours, Chloe ordered. David hesitated. For a split second, our eyes met. I thought I saw a flicker of something pity, maybe shame in his expression. But then Chloe touched his arm. David, now. He obeyed. He grabbed my suitcase and followed her towards the gangway. Just wait there, Dad. Don't wander off, Chloe called over her shoulder. And then they were gone, swallowed up by the crowd, leaving me alone in the massive hall. I stood there paralyzed. They took my bag, they took my hope, and they left me behind. I did as I was told. I walked to the seating area, hard plastic chairs. I found an empty spot next to a vending machine and sat down, and I waited. The first hour passed agonizingly slowly. The terminal was a theater of joy. I was the only one watching, from the cheap seats. Families laughing, children pointing excitedly at the massive ship visible through the windows, elderly couples holding hands. I thought about Margaret. She would have loved this excitement. The thought twisted something painful in my chest. I checked my phone. The screen was blank. No call. No message. I told myself to be patient. It was a big ship. These things take time. Chloe was handling it. She was efficient. She always handled things. I tried to believe the lies I was telling myself, but a cold dread was creeping in. As the second hour began, the knot in my stomach tightened. The crowd in the terminal was thinning out, significantly. The excited chatter faded, replaced by echoing announcements for final boarding. The maid of cleaning crews beginning their work. The vast space suddenly felt too large, too empty, and I was still sitting there, alone. My knees were throbbing. My back ached from the hard plastic chair. I needed to stretch, to walk, but I was paralyzed by the fear of missing her call. The fear of missing the trip I sacrificed everything for. I couldn't stand it anymore. The silence was too loud. I dialed her number. The phone rang once, straight to voicemail. Hi, this is Chloe. Leave a message. My hand was shaking. Chloe, it's Dad. I'm still waiting in the terminal. It's almost empty here. What's going on? Please call me back. I waited another 30 minutes. The silence was deafening. The humiliation started to creep in, a hot flush rising up my neck. People were looking at me. The staff, the few remaining passengers, the old man sitting alone by the vending machine, looking lost and confused. I waited like a fool. I decided to call Ethan, my son. He was always more compassionate than his sister. He picked up on the second ring. Dad? Hey, I just got on the ship. This place is incredible. Where are you? I saved you a seat at the lounge. I'm still in the terminal, Ethan, I said. The words caught in my throat. I felt ashamed to admit it. The terminal? Why? What happened? Chloe said there was a problem with my room key, I explained, my voice trembling. She told me to wait for her call. There was a long pause. A problem. Dad, that doesn't make sense. I checked in 10 minutes ago with no issues. We're in 904. Chloe and David are next door. I assumed you were across the hall. I don't know, Ethan. She told me to wait. Wait in the terminal? His voice rose in alarm. Dad, the ship is leaving soon. The all-aboard announcement was 15 minutes ago. They are preparing to close the doors. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of confusion. The realization hit me. I might actually miss the cruise. The cruise I paid for. And my own daughter might allow that to happen. I felt a sudden, desperate urge to run toward the gangway, to demand answers. But the habit of trusting Chloe, the years of letting her take charge, held me paralyzed. I know, I don't have a key, Ethan. I can't get on board. My voice cracked. Okay, Dad, don't panic. Stay right where you are, Ethan said firmly. I'm going to find Chloe. I'll sort this out. I'll call you right back. He hung up. I stared at the phone. My heart pounded against my ribs. This couldn't be happening. Another 20 minutes passed. The terminal was a ghost town. Only a handful of staff members remained at the desks, shutting down their computers. I got up. My legs were stiff and unsteady. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit here and watch my dreams sail away. I walked towards the check-in desk. My footsteps echoed in the silence. A young man in a crisp uniform was closing the last computer. His name tag read Marcus. He looked annoyed when he saw me approaching. Excuse me, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm supposed to be on the ship, the Majestic. My daughter, Chloe Miller, checked in earlier. My name is Robert Miller. Marcus sighed. He reluctantly opened his computer again and tapped a few keys. Robert Miller. Yes, you are on the manifest, sir. Relief washed over me. For a second, but I don't have a key, I explained. My daughter said there was a mix-up, that you were sorting out my room, the concierge suite. He looked at the screen, frowning. I don't see any notes about a mix-up, sir. Your room assignment is right here. He paused, his frown deepening. He tapped the screen one more time. Then he told me the truth. Marcus printed a card and slid it across the counter. A plain white card. Not the gold one Chloe had. Your room assignment is cabin 214, sir. I looked at the number, 214. That didn't sound right. The 9th deck. Panorama. That's what I paid for. My stomach dropped. Deck 2? I asked, my voice faint. But my family is on the 9th deck. Concierge class. Sir, Marcus said. His voice was flat and final. He didn't even look at me. Cabin 214 is an interior cabin on the 2nd deck. That is your assigned room. It was booked months ago. I stared at him. The 2nd deck? That was the lowest passenger deck, right above the waterline, near the engines. An interior cabin. No windows, no balcony. The cheapest, smallest room on the entire ship. That can't be right, I whispered. The blood drained from my face. I paid for concierge class. Marcus just stared blankly. The booking was made and confirmed by Miss Chloe Miller. If you have an issue, you will need to take it up with guest services on the ship. He closed his computer again. The sound was final. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. He looked past me, towards the door. Now, you need to board immediately. They are closing the gangway. You're the last passenger. He walked away, leaving me alone at the counter. The plastic keycard felt cold and alien in my hand. I didn't move. I couldn't. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. It knocked the wind out of me. This wasn't a mix-up. This wasn't a logistical error. Chloe had done this. She hadn't forgotten me. She hadn't been delayed sorting out a mistake. She had deliberately booked me into the worst room on the ship, far away from her, far away from the luxury I had paid for. And then she abandoned me in the terminal, leaving me to discover the truth on my own, maybe even hoping I would miss the ship entirely. The betrayal was so deep it threatened to shatter me. The bright lights of the terminal seemed to spin. I felt sick to my stomach. I had spent my life building a future for them. I sacrificed everything. My sweat, my time, my health, and this is how my daughter repaid me, by stuffing me in a broom closet on the 2nd deck. I didn't want to go on the ship anymore. I wanted to turn around and go home, to the silence of my empty house. But this was Margaret's trip. I made a promise. I couldn't dishonor her memory by giving up now. I had to face this. I had to face Chloe. Slowly, mechanically, I picked up the keycard. I walked towards the gangway. The walk felt like a funeral procession. My own funeral. The security guard at the top scanned my card and rushed me inside. "You almost missed it, sir. Hurry up." As soon as I stepped onto the ship, the doors sealed shut behind me. A heavy metallic thud. I was trapped. The atrium was a spectacle of opulence. Gold railings, crystal chandeliers, velvet carpets. A string quartet played softly. It was beautiful. It was everything the brochures promised. People were laughing, holding glasses of champagne, and it wasn't for me. I found the elevators. I pressed the button for the second deck as the elevator descended. The luxury began to fade away. The music disappeared. The carpet became thinner, the lighting harsher. It felt like I was descending into the belly of the beast. The doors opened to a narrow, dimly lit hallway. The air smelled faintly of diesel fuel and industrial cleaning supplies. It was sterile, cold. I could hear the deep, throbbing rumble of the engines beneath my feet. The vibration was constant. It rattled my bones. I found cabin 20 tucked away in a corner, next to a door marked crew only. I swiped the keycard and pushed the door open. The sight took my breath away, but not in a good way. The room was tiny. It was barely bigger than the walk-in closet Margaret and I used to share. A small twin bed was pushed against the wall, a tiny desk, a cramped bathroom. There was no window. The walls were a dull, sterile beige, where a view of the ocean should have been. There was only a cheap painting of a sailboat bolted to the wall. It felt like a prison cell. My old suitcase was sitting in the middle of the floor. David must have brought it down here. He knew where I was going to be staying. He knew what Chloe had done, and he didn't say a word. He just dropped my bag and ran back to his luxury suite. The betrayal wasn't just Chloe's, it was his too. I sat on the bed, the thin mattress sagging under my weight. I looked around the small, suffocating room. The silence was heavy, broken only by the relentless hum of the engines. And for the first time since the day Margaret died, I felt completely, utterly alone. I didn't unpack. I just sat there in the dark. The lights were off, but the darkness offered no comfort. I thought about Chloe, about the cold efficiency with which she had discarded me, like I was trash. I thought about the money, the significant difference between the concierge suite I paid for in this tiny cabin. Thousands of dollars. Where had that money gone? A few minutes later, the ship's horn blasted. A long, mournful sound that vibrated through the walls of my cell. The ship started to move. We were leaving Seattle. I was on the Alaskan cruise, Margaret's dream trip, and I was buried alive, miserable and heartbroken. I couldn't stay in that room. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I needed air. No, I needed more than air. I needed answers. Anger started to replace the shock. A cold, hard anger I hadn't felt in years. I stood up, my resolve hardening. I wasn't going to hide down here. I was going to go up to the 9th deck. I needed to look Chloe in the eyes and ask her why she hated me so much. I took the elevator up. Stepping out onto the 9th floor was like entering a different world. The hallway was wide and bright, the carpet plush and silent under my feet. The doors were made of dark, polished wood. Gentle classical music played from hidden speakers. It smelled like expensive flowers. It was quiet, peaceful, expensive. I found Suite 902. I took a deep breath. My hand trembled as I raised it to knock. David opened it. He was already changed into expensive-looking casual wear, a white polo shirt and khaki shorts, a glass of champagne in his hand. He looked startled when he saw me. His smile froze. "Robert, hey." His voice was too bright, too forced. A salesman's voice. "We were just about to call you. Liar. I need to talk to Chloe," I said. My voice was low and steady, ignoring the tremor of anger running through me. She's getting ready for dinner," David stammered, blocking the doorway. "We have reservations at the Glacier Steakhouse." It's very exclusive. Hard to get a table. I don't care about your reservations, David. I need to talk to her now. I pushed past him. David hesitated, glanced back into the room, then stepped aside reluctantly. The suite was breathtaking. It was huge. A large living area with a plush sofa, a dining table set with fine china, and massive floor-to-ceiling glass doors leading out to a wide balcony. The ocean stretched out before it, sparkling in the evening light. A bottle of champagne was chilling in a silver ice bucket. A platter of fruit and cheese sat on the coffee table. It was everything I'd paid for, and it wasn't mine. Chloe walked out of the bedroom, wrapped in a thick white bathrobe. Her hair was damp. She stopped short when she saw me. Her relaxed expression hardened instantly. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp with annoyance. Not surprise, not guilt. Annoyance. "You should be getting ready. You look a mess." "I think you know what I'm doing here, Chloe," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I gestured around the opulent suite. Suite 902 and cabin 240. Chloe sighed dramatically. She walked over to the ice bucket and poured herself a glass of champagne. "Dad, we talked about this in the terminal. There was a mix-up. The cruise line overbooked. It happens all the time." She said it so easily. The lies slipped off her tongue like silk. "Don't lie to me, Chloe," I said, my voice rising. The anger I had suppressed finally broke through. I talked to the attendant, Marcus. There was no mix-up. The booking for cabin 214 was confirmed months ago. "You booked me into the cheapest room on the ship." Deliberately. "Dad, you're making a scene," Chloe hissed. She looked nervously towards the door, worried someone might hear, worried about appearances. That was always Chloe's biggest concern. "Why, Chloe?" I demanded. The pain was raw in my throat. "I gave you the money for 3 concierge suites. I paid for this luxury. Where did that money go? What did you do with the difference?" Chloe flushed. She walked over to the balcony, her back to me. She took a sip of champagne. The prices went up after we initially looked. She said, her voice cold and detached, "Things are more expensive than we anticipated. Inflation, you know. We had to cut corners somewhere." "Cut corners?" I was the corner she cut. "Cut corners?" I repeated. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. "By humiliating your father. By stuffing me in a closet on the second deck while you enjoy this palace. A palace I paid for. It's not a closet, Dad. It's a perfectly adequate cabin," she said. She turned to face me. Her eyes were cold and defiant. Margaret's eyes, but without the love. "People pay good money for those rooms." "Have you seen it, Chloe?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Have you seen the room where you put the man who worked his whole life to give you everything? The man who sold his business to pay for this trip?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me. The silence was her answer. Ethan walked in then. The connecting door to his suite, 904, was open. He must have heard the raised voices. "What's going on?" he asked. He looked from me to Chloe, his face etched with concern. "Dad, I was just coming to find you. Your sister decided to save money by putting me in steerage," I said bitterly. Ethan looked shocked. He turned to Chloe. "Chloe, is that true? You put Dad on the second deck? An interior cabin? After he paid for a suite?" "It's complicated, Ethan," Chloe said defensively. She crossed her arms over her chest. "You don't understand the finances. What's complicated about it?" Ethan pressed. "Dad paid for 3 suites. Where is his suite?" Chloe glared at him. Her facade was cracking. "We were over budget," Chloe snapped. "David and I have expenses you don't understand. We wanted to do the helicopter tour on the glacier. It's very expensive. And the premium spa package." She paused, then added the final insult. "And we needed to host some of David's clients who are on board. We needed the onboard credit. We couldn't afford everything." The twist hit me with full force. It wasn't a necessity. It was a choice. They prioritized their luxuries over my dignity. Using the money I provided, they stole the experience I had saved a lifetime for. The silence in the room was heavy with the weight of her admission. "So you used my money, the money I gave you for my room, for your spa treatments and your helicopter tour?" I asked. The pain twisted in my chest like a knife. You stole from me. We deserve to enjoy this trip too, Dad, Chloe shrieked. Her mask of civility finally slipped, revealing the cold, entitled woman underneath. It's not just about you and Mom. And then she said the words that shattered me completely. You're retired, you don't do anything. She looked at me with disdain. You don't need a fancy room with a balcony. You just need a place to sleep. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. Why do you always have to make everything so difficult? Why can't you just be grateful we brought you? I stared at her, unable to believe the words coming out of her mouth. This was my little girl. Where had that little girl gone? The dismissal of my entire life's work. The implication that I was useless, that I deserved nothing. It was a devastation deeper than the financial theft. I am your father, Chloe, I whispered. The words were heavy with grief. How could you treat me like this? Your mother would be ashamed of you. Leave Mom out of this, Chloe said, her ruse trembling with anger, not remorse. This is about you and your inability to adapt. The world has moved on, Dad. Maybe it's time you did too. She walked past me, brushing my shoulder dismissively. Now if you'll excuse us, we're late for dinner. Don't wait up. David followed her. He avoided my gaze. His silence was a betrayal, in itself. The door closed behind them, with a soft, definitive click. Ethan stood there, his face pale, his eyes filled with tears. Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I swear I didn't know. It's not your fault, Ethan, I said, feeling exhausted. The fight had gone out of me. I just felt old and tired and unspeakably sad. Come stay in my suite, Dad. It's huge. We can share. I won't let you stay in that cabin. It's not right. I appreciated the offer, but I couldn't accept it. No, Ethan. I don't want to impose. You enjoy your trip. I needed the isolation to process the betrayal. Accepting his help felt like admitting defeat. Like I was the useless old man Chloe saw me as Ray. I left the panorama deck. I went back down to my cabin. The elevator ride felt endless. The descent back into the darkness and the noise. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to eat. I just wanted to disappear. I spent the next 2 days in that small, windowless room. The isolation was overwhelming. It felt like being buried alive. The rumble of the engines was a constant reminder of where I was, of where my daughter put me. I ordered room service. The food was cold and tasteless by the time it reached the second deck. I mostly just sat on the bed, thinking. I thought about the sacrifices I had made, the weekends I missed, the vacations we couldn't afford, the times I came home exhausted and covered in sawdust, but still found the energy to help Chloe with her homework, to coach Ethan's baseball team. I thought I was investing in their future, teaching them the value of hard work and family. But I had failed. I hadn't taught Chloe compassion. I hadn't taught her respect. I had raised a monster. On the third day, we docked in Juneau. The voice of the cruise director announced the various excursions. Helicopter tours, whale watching. I knew Chloe and David were doing the expensive helicopter tour, the one they bought with my money. Ethan texted me, asking if I wanted to join him for a whale watching trip. I told him I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't face the cheerful crowds, the happy families. The beauty of Alaska felt tainted now. But I couldn't stay in that cabin anymore. I felt like I was suffocating. I needed to see the sky. I needed to breathe. I decided to go up to the observation deck, the top floor of the ship. If this story has touched your heart so far, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories like this to life. It means more than you know. The observation deck was a vast space. Panoramic windows offering stunning views of the Alaskan landscape. The mountains were majestic. Covered in snow, the water crystal clear. It was breathtakingly beautiful. Margaret would have loved it. The thought brought a sharp sting of tears to my eyes. The deck was crowded. People taking pictures, sipping cocktails, enjoying the sunshine. I found a quiet spot near the railing, away from the crowd. I looked out at the ocean, the wind on my face, the sun on my skin. For a moment, the pain in my chest eased slightly. It's magnificent, isn't it? I turned around, startled. A woman in a crisp white officer's uniform was standing next to me. She looked to be in her late 50s, intelligent eyes and a warm, compassionate smile. She radiated authority. "Yes, it is," I said, quickly wiping a tear from my eye. "Are you enjoying the cruise, Mr. Miller?" she asked kindly. I was surprised she knew my name. "How did you know who I am?" "I'm Sarah Jenkins, the hotel general manager," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm and reassuring. "It's my job to know everyone on board, especially those who seem troubled." Troubled? Was it that obvious? "Well, to be honest, Miss Jenkins, I'm not enjoying it very much." She looked at me with genuine concern. "I'm very sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to help? I noticed you haven't left your cabin much." I hesitated. I didn't want to complain. I didn't want to make a scene. Chloe's words echoed in my mind. "You're making a scene." But something about Miss Jenkins' kind eyes made me want to tell the truth. I was tired of hiding. Tired of the shame. "It's my accommodations," I said finally, my voice quiet. "They are not what I expected." "I understand you are in cabin 214, she said, her expression neutral. "Is there something wrong with the room?" "It's very small, and it's on the second deck, near the engines. It's very noisy, and there's no window." I looked down at my hands, my calloused, aging hands. Miss Jenkins nodded sympathetically. "Yes, the interior cabins can be quite challenging for a long voyage." "Did you book it yourself?" "No," I said, the shame washing over me again. "My daughter booked it for me, Chloe Miller." I took a deep breath. I paid for a concierge class suite on the panorama deck, like her and the rest of the family. But when I checked in, they told me I was in 214. Miss Jenkins frowned. Her professional demeanor shifted. "That's highly irregular, Mr. Miller. You paid for a suite, but you were assigned an interior cabin." She said there was a mix-up, that the cruise line overbooked. I paused. But that wasn't true. I found out she deliberately booked me into the cheapest room. "Why would she do that?" Miss Jenkins asked, her eyes searching mine. "To save money for her own expenses," I admitted, the humiliation burning my throat. She used the difference for spa treatments and excursions for her and her husband. The words tumbled out of me, heavy with the weight of my despair. I told her everything. About Margaret's dream trip. About selling my business. About the money. About the humiliation in the terminal. About the confrontation in the suite. About what Chloe said to me. As I spoke, I felt a strange sense of relief. I hadn't realized how much I needed to be heard, to be validated. When I finished, Ms. Jenkins was silent for a long moment. She looked out at the passing glaciers. When she turned back to me, her eyes were blazing with a quiet fury, not at me, but at the injustice of the situation. "Mr. Miller," she said finally, her voice firm, "I am so deeply sorry you have been treated this way. No one should be treated like this, especially not by their own family." "It's okay," I said automatically, feeling embarrassed by my outpouring of emotion. "I don't want to cause any trouble." "We're not causing trouble, Mr. Miller," Miss Jenkins said firmly. "Your daughter is. What she has done is not just cruel. It's potentially fraudulent, given that you paid for a higher class of service, and she misappropriated the funds." Fraudulent, the word hung in the air between us. Miss Jenkins paused, then looked at me with a determined expression. "Mr. Miller, I need to tell you something. Something that confirms your suspicions, and frankly disgusts me." I braced myself. What else could there be? "I was in the concierge lounge on the first day," she began, "shortly after boarding. I overheard your daughter and her husband talking to another couple. David's clients, I believe." My stomach tightened. They were laughing. Miss Jenkins said, her voice tight with anger. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the railing. "Laughing?" I repeated. "They were boasting," she continued, "about how they had managed to downgrade your booking without your knowledge. How they had used the extra money, several $1,000s, for their own onboard expenses. They were calling it their genius hack. But that wasn't the worst part. They were laughing about how easy it was to manipulate you." Ms. Jenkins said, her voice shaking with controlled rage. They said you were getting confused in your old age and wouldn't notice the difference. That you were too passive to fight back. The words hit me like a physical blow, harder than anything that had happened so far. Confused. Senile. Easy to manipulate. I felt the blood drain from my face. The pain was so sharp, so intense, that I thought I might collapse. I gripped the railing tightly, my knuckles matching hers. It wasn't just theft, it was character assassination. I had known what they did. I had understood their greed, their entitlement. But to hear that they were proud of it, that they found my humiliation amusing, that they were already laying the groundwork to dismiss me as incompetent, it was unbearable. It was a level of cruelty I couldn't comprehend. I wanted to intervene then, Miss Jenkins continued, her voice filled with regret. But I needed to verify the facts. I reviewed the booking history. Your daughter did exactly what she claimed. She explained the process. She canceled the original booking for 3 suites. Then she immediately rebooked it as 2 suites and 1 interior cabin. The difference in fare was converted into onboard credit, linked directly to her account. She looked at the clipboard she was holding, which, I might add, they have almost entirely spent. Champagne, spa treatments, the helicopter tour, even purchases in the jewelry store. She looked at me, her eyes shining with compassion. Mr. Miller, this stops now. We do not tolerate this kind of behavior on our ship. Elder abuse is a serious matter. She took a deep breath. Mr. Miller, come with me. I followed her, dazed and overwhelmed. We walked through the observation deck, past the smiling, oblivious passengers, towards the private elevators at the far end of the ship, the ones reserved for the highest-paying guests. We went up to the 10th deck, the highest deck on the ship, the summit deck. It was even more luxurious than the panorama deck. The air was rarefied up here. Miss Jenkins stopped in front of a large double door at the very front of the ship. The owner's suite. This is the best accommodation on the ship, she said. It's usually reserved for VIP guests or the owner himself. It's currently vacant. She swiped a master keycard and pushed the doors open. I stepped inside and my breath caught in my throat. The suite was magnificent. It was bigger than my house. A massive living room with a grand piano. A dining room that could seat 10. A huge bedroom with a king-size bed facing the ocean. A bathroom with a marble bathtub. The balcony wrapped around the entire front of the ship, offering a panoramic view that was simply stunning. The glaciers, the ocean, the sky, it was everything Margaret had dreamed of. This is yours for the remainder of the voyage, Mr. Miller. Miss Jenkins said. She handed me a platinum keycard, heavy and cool in my hand. I stared at her, speechless. I can't accept this. It must be incredibly expensive. I can't afford this. It is, Mr. Miller, but you deserve it, she said, her voice firm but kind. And don't worry about the cost. It's complimentary. As I said, the cruise line does not tolerate fraudulent behavior on our ships. This is our way of making amends for the distress you have experienced. She smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. And as for your daughter and her husband, they will be dealt with. Justice. Finally. Just then we heard voices in the hallway. Loud, angry voices. Getting closer. I demand to know what is going on. Our keycards have been deactivated. This is unacceptable. It was Chloe. She burst through the open door of the owner's suite, followed by David, looking flustered, and a very confused-looking Ethan, who must have been with them when their keys stopped working. Chloe stopped short when she saw me, standing there in the middle of the most expensive suite on the ship, with Miss Jenkins. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. She looked at the platinum keycard in my hand. Miss Jenkins stepped forward. Her presence authority. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Miss Miller, I am Sarah Jenkins, the hotel general manager," she said, her voice calm but lethal. "I was just welcoming your father to his new accommodations." Chloe looked around the opulent suite. Her face turned pale, her jaw clenched. His new accommodations. "What are you talking about? This is the owner's suite." "Indeed it is," Miss Jenkins said calmly. We decided to upgrade him from the cabin you booked for him on the second deck. Cabin 214. Upgrade him? Why? Chloe shrieked, her composure crumbling. Who is going to pay for this? We certainly aren't. This complimentary, Miss Jenkins said. A gesture of goodwill. Given the appalling circumstances of his original booking, she looked directly at Chloe, her eyes cold as the Alaskan glaciers. We are aware of the fraudulent changes you made to the reservation, Mrs. Miller. Chloe gasped. Fraudulent? What are you talking about? We know that you deliberately downgraded your father's accommodation, Miss Jenkins continued, relentless, and that you stole the difference in fare, converting it into onboard credit for your own personal expenses. We also know, Miss Jenkins added, raising her voice slightly, that you have been spreading rumors about your father's competency, suggesting he is confused. That's a lie, Chloe sputtered. He told you that. He is confused. He's making things up. We have the booking records, Mrs. Miller, the transaction history. The timestamps, Miss Jenkins said, her voice sharp as a razor. And I personally overheard your conversation in the concierge lounge. I heard you laughing about your genius hack. The silence that followed was absolute. Ethan stared at his sister, his expression horrified. Disgusted. Chloe, you stole from Dad? Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. You laughed about it? You called him confused? Chloe glared at him, but she didn't deny it. The truth was hanging in the air, ugly and undeniable. Effective immediately, Miss Jenkins continued. Your onboard account is frozen. The amount you already spent, which totals $4,578, will be charged back to your personal credit card on file. Charged back? You can't do that, David protested. Furthermore, you and your husband will be vacating Suite 902. What? Where are we supposed to go? David asked, panicking. We have prepared alternative accommodations for you, Miss Jenkins said. A cold smile touched her lips. Cabin 15, 28 or 16. Interior cabins on the second deck. They are the only available rooms on the ship. Poetic justice. The second deck? Near the engines? Are you insane? Chloe screamed. Her voice was hysterical. I am a concierge-class guest. I will not stay in an interior cabin. I will not be humiliated like this. You will, or you will be disembarked at the next port and find your own way home, Miss Jenkins said firmly. Your behavior has violated the terms and conditions of the cruise contract. We have zero tolerance for theft and abuse. She looked at her watch. You have 1 hour to pack your belongings. Security will be arriving shortly to escort you to your new cabins. A security guard, Officer Ramirez, appeared in the doorway, stern and imposing. Chloe realized she had lost. Miss Jenkins turned to me, her expression softening. Mr. Miller, if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call me. Enjoy your stay. Enjoy Alaska. She walked out of the suite, followed by Officer Ramirez, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Chloe glared at me, her face contorted with rage and humiliation. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her expensive makeup. How could you do this to me, Dad? She screamed. You ruined everything. You humiliated me. She still didn't understand. She still thought she was the victim. You ruined it yourself, Chloe, I said. My voice was quiet but strong. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by a cold clarity. You treated me like garbage. You stole from me. You betrayed me. I looked at her. Really looked at her, and realized that the little girl I loved was gone. In her place was a stranger, a cold, calculating stranger. A stranger I didn't want to know anymore. I want you out of my sight, I said. The words heavy with finality. Chloe burst into tears. Messy, ugly sobs of frustration and self-pity. Not remorse. Never remorse. David grabbed her arm and pulled her out of the suite. The door slammed behind them. Ethan stayed behind. He walked over to me and hugged me tightly. A real hug. The first one I had received on this trip. I'm so sorry, Dad, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I should have seen it. I should have stopped her. I hugged him back. My own tears, finally falling. Tears of relief. Tears of grief. It's okay, son. It's okay. I spent the rest of the cruise in the owner's suite. It was luxurious, quiet, and incredibly peaceful. The only sound was the rush of the ocean. No engines, no diesel smell. I ordered room service, enjoying delicious meals, while watching the stunning Alaskan scenery pass by. I sat on the balcony for hours, wrapped in a warm blanket, watching the whales breaching the water, the eagles soaring overhead. I finally saw the Alaska Margaret dreamed of. I felt her presence there with me. I spent time with Ethan. We talked for hours, sharing memories of Margaret, reconnecting in a way we hadn't in years. He apologized again for not seeing what Chloe was doing, for not protecting me. I told him it wasn't his fault. Chloe was good at hiding her true nature. We went on the whale-watching trip together. It was magical. I didn't see Chloe or David again. I heard from Ethan that they stayed in their cabins for the remainder of the cruise, too ashamed and humiliated to show their faces. They missed the glaciers. They missed the whales. The rumble of the engines kept them company. On the last evening of the cruise, I stood on the balcony, looking at the stars. They seemed brighter here, clearer than I had ever seen them. I thought about the journey I had taken, not just the physical journey from Seattle to Alaska, but the emotional journey. I had started this trip, feeling small and invisible, burdened by grief and betrayed by my own daughter, a useless old man. I was ending it feeling strong and empowered, validated and respected. I realized that my worth wasn't defined by my children's approval or by the luxury surrounding me. It was defined by my own actions, my own integrity, the life I had lived, the houses I had built. Chloe tried to tear my foundation down, but she only succeeded in destroying her own. The next morning we docked in Seattle. I packed my old suitcase, feeling lighter than I had in years. I thanked Miss Jenkins personally for her kindness and intervention, for seeing me when my own family refused to. She told me it was her privilege. She also informed me that Chloe and David had been banned from the cruise line for life. As I walked down the gangway, I saw Chloe and David waiting near the baggage claim. They looked tired and miserable. Their expensive clothes were wrinkled, their faces pale and drawn. They saw me. Chloe looked like she wanted to say something, to apologize, perhaps, or maybe to scream at me again. I didn't give her the chance. I walked past them without saying a word. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say. I found Ethan waiting for me outside the terminal. He smiled when he saw me. A bright, genuine smile. Ready to go home, Dad? He asked, taking my suitcase. Yes, I am, I said. Before we got into the taxi, I knew what I had to do. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Tom? It's Robert Miller. Tom was my lawyer and an old friend. Robert, how was Alaska? It was illuminating, Tom, I said.
I need to make some changes to my will immediately.
Chloe had made her choice. She had shown me exactly how much she valued me. Now she had to live with the consequences. But I would also make sure Ethan knew he was valued. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, I looked out the window at the massive ship. It was just a vessel. The real journey was the one I had taken inside myself. I thought about Margaret. I had taken the trip for her, and I knew she would be proud of me. Not because I had stayed in the owner's suite, but because I had found my voice. Because I had reclaimed my dignity. I was what a fool. I was not confused. I was not useless. I was Robert Miller. A builder, a father, a survivor, and I finally understood what I deserved. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot. It's your time matters.